Welcome back, guys, and today we're actually going to be taking another look at the Pokemon Masters trailer. And I kind of was going back the other day and I was kind of like watching it again, and I tried to look a little bit more closely at a couple of things, and I kind of want to bring those up in this video and kind of go through those and talk a little bit about them and possibly speculate a little bit about what some of the things that we got shown in the trailer could possibly end up meaning for the actual gameplay and possibly even the future of the game itself. So the first thing that we actually are going to do, we're actually going to look at this first screenshot here. So we're going to start from the top and work our way down to the bottom. As you can see at the top, each Pokemon only has one weakness. Now, I've seen this talked about before, so this isn't anything like super revolutionary, but I definitely think that this is pretty interesting, to say the least, because it almost kind of plays it off like as if it was in the TCG kind of, because in the Pokemon trading card game, each Pokemon only has one typing, excluding some of those like obscure sets way back in the day that did have dual typings, and generally that means that Pokemon only have one weakness as well. So what that ends up meaning for Pokemon Masters is that we could possibly be seeing Pokemon that have one typing now, and we could see that Pokemon re-released in the future with a trainer that possibly has different, trainer moves, or possibly a whole new typing, or what have you. So for instance, we see Spheal a lot in the trailer, and Spheal is a water and ice type Pokemon, and for this particular example, we could possibly have a water type Spheal who is actually going to be weak to either grass or electric, and then we could also have possibly the ice typing, which could be weak to, fighting or steel or, whatever. It could possibly go either way, and I think that really increases the longevity of this game as a whole and possibly carries it further into the future than what we could be seeing at the moment. Now, you'll also notice up here at the very top, we do have this little symbol with a water typing in it. I'm trying to figure out kind of what that could be, but let's hold on to that thought because we'll talk about that here in just a second as well. Now, if we move down just a little bit in the image, you can see that when we're looking at our team of 3 Pokemon, we do of course have 3 separate Pokemon, and you can kind of see here that we do have some symbols right underneath one of our Pokemon. And based off some footage from the trailer, I actually think that that could end up signifying buffs and debuffs. So one of the ones that we see here is kind of like a little star, almost. It's not really like a 5-pointed star. It kind of looks like a punch, like a hit kind of animation that you would see. I think that possibly could be for an attack buff. And the other one that we see in the trailer at some point is like a little shoe, which I could see possibly being for speed. If I'm not mistaken, it actually says +1 speed or something like that in the trailer somewhere. But I definitely think that that's going to be what signifies like what buffs and debuffs that our Pokemon actually have. Now, if we actually go down to the bottom of this image, we can actually see that we have all of our actions and basically all of our moves that we can perform during our battles here. So at the very bottom, we do have 3 pairs, of course. We do have 3 Pokemon with 3 trainers. And you can see we do have 2 attacks on each Pokemon and 2 trainer moves on each Pokemon. Now, here again, here comes this symbol. This time for our Pokemon, it actually has a grass emblem in it, which does make sense considering we are a grass type Pokemon here. But I'm thinking this could possibly be a couple of different things. The most likely thing that I can see is this is probably going to be our sync move. And I think that possibly that number could be possibly a countdown until we're able to use it. Like, if this game does incorporate turns in some sort of way, I could see maybe like 9 turns until we're able to use it, 6 turns until we're able to use it, something like that. Or it could just possibly be a cooldown because both trainers have actually used it this match. Hopefully that one is not as likely. I do think that if it's a turns until we can use it and it's only once per game, I think that would be actually really cool. It does kind of give some sort of comeback element to the match, but hopefully it's not like too overpowered. but you know, that's pure speculation here. Another interesting thing that I did see, you can actually see that Palisand here actually has two different typed moves. We do have a ghost move and we do have a ground move, which is always really cool to see. That does mean that we actually can play around with some type coverages with our matches, which is always going to be really fun. That's one of the most exciting things about building, you know, teams and things like that for me. So I definitely think that's really cool. Although that's the only instance that we really see that in the trailer, as far as I could tell. Palisand is pretty much the only one that gets that. Every other trainer either has dual dragon type moves, dual grass type moves, dual fire type moves, whatever it is. And another important thing that we do notice here is that the trainer moves are actually limited. Now I'm assuming these are limited per battle. These aren't going to be able to just be fired off, you know, once every so often, you know, as many times as you want to in a battle. It does look like these are only going to be for a certain number of times per battle. Now you'll notice that everything in this first image is actually going to have 2 uses per trainer per move, so keep that in mind because we're actually going to talk about that in just a second as well. Moving on to our second image here, we do see that over here is the name of the trainer move here, only actually has 1 use. So being that we've used it, it just gets used for that match, I'm assuming, and we can't use it anymore until we start a new match. Now over here specifically does look like it actually heals based on what the trailer shows us, which is actually kind of interesting. Now, another thing that I saw that I thought was kind of interesting is the way that some of the trainers actually speak to you as the player. If you'll notice, Erica, Rosa, and Barry all end up mentioning that they're gonna join your team. They all say it in a little different way, but they're basically saying, yeah, I'll join your team. This actually leads me to believe that I think these 3 trainers at least are gonna be free to play. Now it's also kind of interesting because in just a few frames after we see Barry join the team, you can see that Misty, Rosa, and Barry are all standing there side by side. Which, that actually kind of makes me think that Misty would possibly be free to play. But then in the next image, we actually see even more trainers. So I don't know if they're necessarily trying to show us that, you know, Misty is going to be free to play and Brock and the other trainers that we see here, possibly those could be free to play, but I definitely think that the way that it's worded, Erica, Rosa, and Barry, all 3 of those are going to be free to play just based on what the trailer shows us. Also, Cynthia does make an appearance here, which is kind of interesting, but the way that Cynthia's words end up coming across, I don't think that she's going to be a free-to-play trainer. I actually think that she could possibly be kind of like a rival, so to speak, an antagonist or an anti-hero as part of the story. Which, speaking of story, I think that based on the tweet that we just recently received, there are actually going to be 5 gym badges in Paseo to collect in the PML, the Pokemon Master League. And based on those 5 badges, the fact that they released that, if you look closely in the trailer, you'll notice that we get 5 different scenes of just a landscape, and then there's several trainers kind of sprinkled out through some of these landscapes as well. That actually leads me to believe that those are actually going to be the 5 regions. Well, regions isn't the right word, but those are going to be the 5 areas of Paseo that we're actually going to visit for obtaining these badges to become part of the Pokemon Master League. Now that got me thinking as well, how is that going to work out? Because now keep in mind, the only gacha game that I've ever played extensively is going to be Dragon Ball Legends, and the story to that is very slow rolling, but they've kind of already had like some sort of story to go off of. It's kind of loosely based on the idea of having sagas just like Dragon Ball Z was, and they've kind of carried that story along for quite a while, and just passing the 1st anniversary, you know, they're up to the Cell games, and basically I'm trying to like comprehend how the Pokemon Company and DNA are going to kind of tie some kind of longevity play into the story. But if I got to thinking about it, it really makes me think that possibly the 5 gym badges could be similar to a tutorial type deal. So maybe the first badge is just complete tutorial. Let's say that it walks you through every single battle and it shows you this is this, that's that, this is sync pairs, this is sync moves, you know, yada yada yada. As you progress through the story, you're not able to possibly unlock maybe like actual PvP or the PvE events or something like that after you obtain all 5 badges, and that's when the game really opens up. Like possibly they're viewing this whole 5 badges thing as the long tutorial section of the game that lets you really explore the mechanics before you're unleashed to kind of do whatever you want to. That's possibly an idea, or it's just possibly that there are going to be 5 badges and it may take us, 5 years before we can actually obtain all 5 badges. They could possibly just trickle out content for a little while, and it could take us, an entire year to get our first badge and things like that. And possibly the PvP and PvE content is just completely open from the get-go. That's also a very possible scenario here. So with that being said, I am getting extremely hyped for this game. If you guys are following me at all on Twitter, I'm trying to offer up my own personal organs to see if I can get a release date from Pokemon Masters. I've yet to get a response, so hopefully they will let us know when this game is going to be released in the very near future. But until then, that is actually going to be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. If you are excited for Pokemon Masters, please be sure to subscribe, as I'm going to be covering this game as much as I can, basically juggling between this and Pokemon Go. It's going to be very interesting, but as always, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. If you like to like videos, you can do that, but if you don't, you can be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below, and until our next video, I will catch you then.